And now time for The Viewing Room with Adam and Ethan.
Welcome to The Viewing Room with Adam and Ethan. I'm Ethan. This is
Adam. I think.
Yeah. We don't have name tags, so it's hard to remember sometimes. Today we are reviewing a very special movie, and it's called Forrest Gump, and Tom Hanks stars in it.
Yeah.
And we will go through all those details in a moment here, but I guess we should introduce ourselves.
I'm Adam. Also known as LB. If you talk around, if you watch your show, which you should, weekly from 4 to 5 p.m. CST on YouTube. You can also find us dufferin.com, which is our organization that we're doing this under, Dufferin Avenue Media Network. I'm also known as LB there. So. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I can't really top that, but I'm Ethan.
I got my plugs in,
and
Yeah, we got producer Gary. You can probably hear him yelling in the background. Yeah, absolute monster of a boss. Anyway,
I can't.
I'm not sure if I mean that in a good way or not. You guys are gonna have to decide
after their last take. Anyways, like I said, we are reviewing Forrest Gump today. Came out. Do you know when it came out? You want to read it?
Came out in 1994. And so we had the LA release, which was June 23rd. So as we're filming this, it won't be when it's released, but as we're filming this, that's tomorrow. So we thought it would be a good movie. You know, we realized when we were halfway through watching it that it would be a good movie. we were like, oh, we'll just make it seem like that was the reason, but no, that wasn't the reason.
It was just a coincidence. I looked up good standalone movies, and I was like, man, maybe we should find something we want to watch. And I sent it to Adam, and he was like, you know what, let's watch Forrest Gump. And I was like, I've never seen it.
I've seen it a lot. It's one of my favorites.
And figured it would be a good kind of first introduction. It's not too old, it's not too new, and it's kind of a good baseline, I think, for us to.
Well, it's a good one to talk about because like so many people like it, and then so many people don't like it for some reason, which I don't understand it, but it's a really good one to, like, there's a lot that you can analyze in it. It seems like a simple movie when you just watch it, but there's a lot that went into it.
Yeah, well, I'd also say it's a very controversial movie based on what I have just read, but we'll see how this goes. I'll talk a little bit about details and stuff, and maybe we can go back and forth. So it had a budget of $55 million back in '94 when it was released, which is now, do you want to guess the number?
110.
Hey.
Did I get it?
115, but
that's
Price is Right rules. You didn't go over. That's pretty good. Who directed it? You know this.
Rob Zemeckis.
Yeah. What other things did he direct?
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyways, he did it. And it stars Tom Hanks and Robin Wright.
Yeah.
Is there any other cool info on the intro that we have?
It was based on a book.
Oh, do you know who wrote the book?
I don't remember the name of it, but it came out in the book came out in '86, I think. I was reading about this, and apparently they deviated a lot from the book, and that's something we can go into in great detail that I don't think we want to today, because that could be a 5-hour conversation. But I don't like it when movies base themselves on books and then go way off the storyline. But since I didn't read the book for Forrest Gump first, I like the movie, so I don't know. I mean, I guess the book was a lot darker, and like his action adventures were a lot more prevalent. Like that was the main focus of the story, and then in the movie they went more for the romance side of it with Jenny. So they just kind of flipped those two. So that's an interesting choice.
Yeah, well, I forget the first name, even though I immediately looked at it, but something Groom did it. So
yeah, it doesn't. I don't
86,
remember.
Yeah. So I never knew it was based on a book.
Yeah, and most people didn't realize it. And I didn't realize it until I looked it up yesterday or something when we were deciding what we were going to watch.
Someone did research.
I read through the Wikipedia, and that's about it.
Oh, so we trust Wikipedia now. Is just how that goes.
I always thought it was a trusted source. I never found any false information on there.
Yeah.
Never. What are you laughing at, Gary?
It's funny because I actually go on Wikipedia and I spread misinformation. It's kind of funny.
Why? What do you mean by tin?
It's funny. We just had. No, never mind.
We're not going to talk about that.
If Adam has a tinfoil hat, you have a tinfoil basement. There's no way.
Would it be an attic, like, above?
Yeah, I don't know. The whole house is tinfoil.
He's got a tinfoil house.
All right, so I'll read the synopsis here off my phone like a true professional, and then we'll talk about the movie. Slow-witted Forrest Gump, played by Tom Hanks, never thought of himself as disadvantaged, and thanks to his supportive mother, Sally Field, he leads nothing but a restricted life, whether dominating as a college football star, fighting in Vietnam, or captaining a shrimp boat. Forrest inspires people with his childlike optimism. But one person Forrest cares about most, maybe the most difficult to save, his childhood love, the sweet but troubled Jenny, played by Robin Wright. It's a pretty good synopsis.
They forgot the ping pong team. That's a pretty big part of it. They didn't mention that.
Yeah, he did play a lot of ping pong.
Yeah, went to China for it.
Life is like a box of ping pong. You never know where you're going to go.
Yeah.
Am I just not funny anymore? Or
That wasn't funny.
have you
Other
just
things have been funny.
stopped?
I'm not going to laugh at something that's not funny.
Well, you kind of have to. Otherwise, I'm going to crash and burn, and then this is not good for anyone. But
You know what would have been funny? If you said instead of Robin Wright, she was Robin Wrong.
I thought she was good. I thought she was fine. That was one thing about the acting in this movie was really good. I mean, Tom Hanks is amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
Tom Hanks is good, and he did a really good job in this. And then the child actors too, the kid who played young Forrest and young Jenny, they did really well.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. Tom Hanks obviously won Best Actor in the Oscars for this.
Yeah.
And well deserved, of course, right? He played great, fantastic Tom Hanks.
Yep.
And yeah, I think you made a good point with the child actors. Like, always hit and miss in the industry.
Yeah.
Obviously.
And they're so hard to work with too. Like that shows good, like directing and when you can actually work with a child actor because they're hard to work with.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's definitely a feat when you can pull it off successfully. And if you get a good child actor, I think one of the best examples is the kid in the Sixth Sense. You know what I mean? I forgot which kid that was. You never seen the movie?
No.
Oh,
Add it to the list.
next week.
Yeah.
No, I would say when you get a great child actor who just has that skill and understands the flow, it takes a movie just to a whole new level, especially like, and I think it shapes the tone of it too. You know what I mean? I think if there was inadequate child acting and performing for the role of Forrest Gump, I feel like it could definitely take away some of the sympathy, make it less serious. People generally don't appreciate it as much because it just takes them out of the moment, right?
Well, that's true. Like they do a good job of like the way he plays it. Like he's not happy, smiley at all. He's very like kind of monotone, like not sad, but like he's not like all upbeat and happy.
No.
And like when you're a kid, I think that's hard to do. And like you say, that makes it more serious. Like you like you say, makes it in the moment.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel like I was not like attached to it, but I do feel like I was drawn in, like in a way, and I feel like
you get your sympathy early.
Right, and as someone who's worked with child actors before, I know it can be a process and it can be tough, and there's a lot of rules when you have child actors in the industry.
Yes.
There's a lot of there's a lot of support systems in place and a lot of structure, but I do think the film industry for anyone can be a challenge, and learning how to do that like in a proper way and toughing it out for a role is very admirable.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned that because I remember reading one time, I think I was reading an article on young Sheldon. Because, of course, there's a lot of child actors in that, or they still are technically, but when they were really young.
Kid.
Yeah, Ian Armitage and then Reagan Ravard. I don't know how to say it.
Is that the kid who plays Georgie?
No, that's the kid who plays Missy.
Oh.
And then... Anyway, like reading about, like, what they have, like, school and stuff. Like, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
that's one thing you don't even think about is like child actors. They still have to go to school to a certain age, and like they can only work like a certain amount of hours on set a day because they have to go to school, and then they have like tutors on set. Like that's part of their budget is to like work with like tutors on set. I'm like that would be a crazy childhood. Like,
Yeah, no, especially when you're like living in a trailer at the time, or
Yeah.
something, you're away from family, right?
yeah,
Like, I think a lot of that is shown in like a Harry Potter
yeah,
movies. You know how many kids are in there, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of children to work with. But I do think there's something to say, and I think it comes down to good directing and management where you find a place. I think it starts in the casting process. I'm going to back up there for a second, but when you find the right child actors and you're willing to do the hard work and stuff to get them to the finish line, I think I think it just really shows.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
I feel like that made sense.
Yeah.
First time today.
Very insightful.
Very insightful, yeah. Okay, let's talk about the plot. What happens in the movie?
Put me on the spot here.
Are we allowed to spoil it?
Oh, yeah.
We're allowed to spoil, yeah.
Spoiler. I mean, everybody's seen
This
it.
is
If they haven't, you
spo-
should. You should go watch it. If you have not seen it, go watch it. I mean it. It's a good movie. Anyway, let's see. So they start off as a child.
They being Forrest Gump. You're
Forrest,
killing it,
yeah. Forrest and Jenny start off as children, and then he gets bullied because he has leg braces, and then he's running along a road away from the bullies, and his braces come off. He's freed of the burden, which actually, interestingly, that was one of the things they changed from the book. He didn't have leg braces in the book. That was something they added in the movies. And then
Do you still have like a curved spine?
I don't know. I don't know that much. It was just an interesting fact I read when I was reading about it. And then they get older, same thing happens. And this is where it's cool. Like they draw all these like little parallels. So there's that in that scene I was just talking about. The bullies are chasing him on bikes and they're throwing stones at him. And then like when he gets to the high school age, it's the same bullies on the same road chasing him, but they're in a truck this time. Like and just showing those little things that they do to connect all the scenes together. Like there's so many of those little things.
Well, yeah, I think you're right there, especially like between the buses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, there's a lot of buses. Every
A
time
lot
he's
of buses.
every time he's
Yeah.
telling the story to like the lady on the park bench, which is really sweet, by the
Yeah.
way. Another bus goes by, and I was kind of hoping there'd be like a transition in one of those. but there wasn't,
there could be.
It was like my film brain was just
Definitely.
itching for like a match cut or some kind of like
or like one of the wipe ones.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
right. But it's fine, whatever. No, like with things in the buses, right? When he gets on the bus as a kid, he's obviously different. He's got some disabilities, right? So none of the kids want to talk with him, sit with him.
Yeah.
You can't sit here, right? And then he goes to the military.
Goes to the army and gets on the bus and same thing.
Yeah, same thing happens, and then he meets those two incidences. Jenny,
Yeah.
who later becomes his wife,
And Bubba.
after many letters, and
Yeah.
and Bubba, who's very good at shrimping.
He's his best good friend. Best good friend.
His best good.
It's his best good friend. Yeah.
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 Yeah, I don't know, very wholesome moment actually.
Yeah.
It turns into a really sad oh my heart hurts moment.
Yeah.
And then it becomes like, oh, okay, these
Yeah.
guys are like his forever friends, and
Yeah.
so from there, the whole plot's kind of like he's telling the story of his life while on a park bench, kind of like sharing some of the lessons he's learned and stuff like that to the passengers, or not passengers, sorry, like the people waiting at the bus terminal, right? And so it keeps like flashbacks and stuff until eventually it catches up to where he is in that exact moment. So he can
And that's
go
the
find his
turning
girl.
point kind of the movie, because up to that point he's still trying to get Jenny. Like there's no, like she's still like off on her drunken high rampage.
Yeah. The true
Yeah.
hippie
The
lifestyle.
true
Yeah,
hippie.
yeah.
And then that's the turning point where it's like now he finds out he's got the son, and she comes back with him and marries him, and then that's the turning point of the movie, But
Yeah.
and everything up to that point is all the historical stuff. That's the other really interesting part about it is how they linked so many historical events. You think about everything. I mean, from the Vietnam War to University of Alabama with the black students, and then Watergate, and
Kennedy.
all Kennedy. Like, there's like 5 assassinations or attempts in there.
Yeah,
And
ping
that's
pong
one that,
teams meeting
yeah,
presidents.
yeah, exactly.
Football teams meeting presidents.
Yeah, all these things. Like, how many presidents did he meet? How many times? Like, and there's that one scene where it's like, and so I went to the White House again, and I met the president of the United States again, and you're like, buddy, hold on. You
and then
don't have to be so sad about that.
Let's not forget about John Lennon's.
John Lennon too,
yes.
And
Is
that
it? Is that have we?
there's probably more.
Yeah, just imagine everything we didn't say is just more presidential stuff, and
I'm sure there's all kinds of like little details that you miss, like like little Easter eggs and whatnot.
yeah, for sure. I mean, there always is, right? Yeah, I've never seen a movie do that,
Yeah.
or to my recollection.
Yeah.
at this
And
time.
and then on the other thing is that leads us into like the VFX of it. That takes so much skill to do all those shots that they talk like where they take that historical footage, mainly with the presidents, and they put them in, and it's so seamless.
Yeah,
And-
exactly. And it was in '94 too, right?
Yeah,
So
like
not
that's
the
pretty
same
good
kind
for
of-
that. And actually, there was one
Same.
I noticed. It's when he's meeting Kennedy, and they use 2 different shots, and his suit changes.
Really?
He's wearing a different suit in the Kennedy is. Like, because they had to use different shots. Because, I mean, there's not a lot of footage from that time, like, in comparison
No,
to what we would have
exactly.
now, right?
Right.
And you'd have to be really picky about it, and then, yeah.
Really, I never even noticed that. So
Yeah.
that's good that you.
I mean,
pointed
I've
out.
watched it enough times that I'm looking for those things now, you know?
Yeah, and the internet helps with those things, I think, too,
Yeah.
nowadays. Technical stuff. Let's actually, we're not really done with plot, are we?
No, there's a lot more to dig into with the
There's
plot.
a lot more. Right. So he finds himself in Vietnam with his good friend Bubba, and Bubba is comes from a long line of shrimpers.
Shrimpers?
Yeah,
I think
shrimpers. I think
shrimpers.
is what they use.
Not to be confused with strippers. Because there are those in the movie, too.
So basically, they find themselves in the Vietnam War. It's not a great time for them, although it starts off kind of happy and wholesome. You
Yeah.
know, Forrest is kind of like his whole life. People are telling him like he has a low IQ, he's stupid, and isn't good enough. And he goes to the army, and they're like, "Holy crap, this guy's a genius!" Right? His
I
IQ
love
must be
that, yeah.
160. He's the best we have. He's like the quickest
Yeah.
learner. He's great at assembling his weapon and taking it apart.
Yes,
and making
sir.
Yeah, he's the most organized.
Yeah.
He knows how to stand straight, and yeah, he loves it. He's very good at it. And then he goes obviously to Vietnam, and very tragic. You know, Bubba is unfortunately killed.
But, you know, that scene, though, where he just keeps going back and back, that shows the strength of his character. Like, you know, through the whole movie up to that, like he's kind of just been like, you know, beaten down, like, everybody, oh, you're stupid, and Jenny, no, I'm not, you know, I don't want anything to do with you anymore, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then here he's like, you know, it's like, no, he's not like just some buffoon that's gonna just, you know, run the other way all the time. Like, he does, when it matters, he does have that inner strength.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point actually that you make, because yeah, basically what happens is they get shelled and like ambushed by some of the enemy soldiers in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And he runs away, and then he runs back because he can't find Bubba. And every time he runs back, he finds another one of his companions, and he picks them up and carries it until he eventually finds Bubba, who's unfortunately like about to pass. And he gets the Medal of Honor for it. And one of the people he ends up saving is Lieutenant Dan.
Lieutenant Dan.
Yeah. And Lieutenant Dan doesn't want to be saved because his whole kind of lineage kind of leads up to a point where everyone in his family has died brutally in some sort of war.
Every American war, from the Civil War to
Yeah.
World War II.
And it's his destiny to basically find a way, at least, or to die a hero for his people, right?
Yeah.
So he's saved by Forrest Gump, and he's obviously pretty resentful because he believes that's his destiny.
Yeah.
And Forrest Gump thinks he's his great friend now
And he's crippled in the process. The other thing, because that's
yes,
that's
he
the
doesn't
other
have legs anymore.
turning point for him is like, and that's the other historical significance that they portrayed very well is like, especially at that time, like in modern day it's gotten better, but like, you know, in that time and even before that, like if you lost a limb in combat, it was hard. Like, you know, I mean, like what are you gonna do? Because not a lot of people had jobs where they could just do it without legs or without arms. And
there's a lot less technology.
and also a lot more like chance of infection, especially when you're in combat. And they did a good job of portraying that, where he's like, I would have rather died than lose my leg because now I'm living off the government tit, as he says, you know.
Right, exactly. No, that I agree. That's a very smart thing to say too, because just even the chance of survival is way lower then than it was now. I mean, obviously your odds of survival when you get your legs blown off is never great, but you know, risk of infection, you know, like kind of relearning how to walk and stuff. Now, obviously, I don't know if they had them back then, prosthetic legs, you know.
Yeah, I mean, well, he did by the end. Like when he comes to the funeral, he's got fancy prosthetic legs, but that's because they're millionaires,
right?
You know, and not like, but you know, up to then he was in a wheelchair, living in a crappy New York flat.
Yeah, I don't think it was is cheap now even for that stuff, but it is technology that I think is more available and becoming more available as we learn more about medicine. But I think it would be a challenge for anyone, and obviously he's very resentful because he wanted to die rather than deal with this. But he comes around in the end. He kind of realizes that it's not really Forrest's fault for saving him, more so than it was actually not his destiny to die there, and that you know, he's now thankful for Forrest to Forrest for saving his life.
Yeah.
And what else? Where do we go from there? Do you want to?
I'm trying to think. So after that, well, he starts the shrimp company.
Yeah, he plays ping pong for a bit.
Plays
first.
ping pong, yeah. There's not a lot to talk about that. That's just pretty straight up.
He's just
really
good
at ping pong.
He's still in the military. He has the Medal of Honor. He's met another president, and he doesn't get like put in service again necessarily. I don't
he's
know
in the special service, like the entertainment.
Yeah, he doesn't get. Is it deployed? Is that
deployed?
Yeah. Instead, he travels around, basically like entertaining and making the wounded soldiers feel better by playing ping pong and showing them his tricks and stuff.
I honestly don't think I would be very cheered up if I saw some guy playing ping pong. I'd just be like, why can't I play ping pong like that? Like I'm never gonna be that good. Like, what's so entertaining about this? I don't understand that.
I might be a little harsh, but no, like I'm actually thinking like too, like if I had my arms blown off, right? And like there was like they were like, don't worry, man, I know it's tough, but there's one thing. We're gonna bring in a Medal of Honor veteran who's gonna help cheer you guys up. And he comes in with a ping pong paddle and a ball in each hand, and I would be like, imagine I have my hands up in the air right now.
Yeah, exactly.
I would be so furious.
Yeah.
Like, but obviously it's not like that. But yeah, I don't know how much that would actually cheer me up. It's a little silly, of course, but sorry, I'm just thinking about that. That's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And then from there, he goes and actually starts shrimping business because, you know,
Bubba Gump Shrimping Company.
Yeah, Bubba had.
Is that a? What was that? Keep going.
Bubba had basically told him everything there is to know about the shrimping business. So he's like, you know what? Now that I'm discharged from the military for my service, I'm going to become a shrimp boat captain, right? So he becomes a shrimp boat captain.
He keeps his promise to Bubba.
Yeah, that he's gonna do it one day. He promised him that he would be his best mate or whatever, and now he's the captain of the barge he bought with some of the money that the military gave him for his discharge. And he becomes a successful shrimp boat captain. And Lieutenant Dan comes back and says, "You know what? I'll be your like best mate because
first mate.
First mate, sorry.
Yeah.
Because back in the hospital ward during Vietnam."
No, it wasn't. It wasn't then. It was when they were in his flat in New York, and he told him like, "Oh, I'm gonna be a shrimp boat captain." And he goes, and then he's like, "If you're ever a shrimp boat captain, it'll be the day I'm an astronaut." And you know,
I thought it was when they were on the. I thought it was when they were on the ground struggling with each other. Sorry, that's my bad. Whoops.
No.
Anyways, yeah. So he agrees to come, a man of his word, as he says.
Yeah.
And helps Forrest on this wacky journey, which leads to
his mother dying, unfortunately. But like Gump's.
Sorry, that threw me so off guard. I thought you were going to talk more about the shrimping business. And then,
what's there to talk about?
You just looked at me and said his mother died.
Well, that's the next important thing.
Yeah,
they start the shrimp company. They suck. A hurricane comes. They're successful. They make a bunch of money. And then his mom dies. Well, almost. She's sick. He goes home. Then she dies.
I was so upbeat and ready to talk more about shrimping, and Adam's just like, yeah, she dies. I'm like, all right, that's my cue to move on from that topic, I guess.
Okay, well, do you like shrimp?
Sure.
Okay, that's all I had to say. That's all I have to say on that.
I wish I could recite all the types of shrimp there are.
Oh, God, that was
So Bubba, that's funny. They do these funny cuts where they're Bubba's telling Forrest Gump of all the cool ways you can cook or eat a shrimp, and it just goes on and on and on and on.
And they keep cutting to different things throughout the day. And then,
yeah, they're like cleaning
Yeah.
or like going down range or whatnot, and yeah, it's a lot of
You know,
fun.
it's an interesting thing though. They do this a lot in this movie. Like, so that's a perfect example of it, where they're talking. Like, so he's listing all those things, and then they always finish it. Like, they make it very clear that that's the last thing they're going to talk about. It's like, you know, he's like, you know, whatever kind of shrimp, and that's about it. And Forrest does it a lot, where he's like, and that's all I have to say about that. Like, they finish it. Like, that's very good writing. Like, it's clear, and it makes sense in the characters. Like, where they're maybe not the brightest people on the earth, and so they make it clear that they're done, you know.
Well, I think that's interesting too. It's like a definitive end,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They always say like treat your audience like they're stupid, and that's not like a negative thing, but more of in the sense of
Making sure everything is clear to your audience.
yeah, and that the people understand it, right? They take away something and
Yeah.
they're not left like huh. Because if you're left like huh, then you've wasted your money going to the movie theater, right? Aside from Interstellar, of course.
Yeah. We're gonna do that one of these days.
We will. I
We will.
promise we will. I'm gonna sneeze, so let's go to Adam's camera. Oh, I lost it. That's terrible.
I did that
and-
too when we were watching it. I'm like, I gotta sneeze, and it was like right at the making love scene, and I'm like, I gotta sneeze. Oh no, never mind. I'm like, this is gonna be the worst interruption to that scene. I gotta sneeze, you know. Anyway, continue.
Could have rewinded or something if you had to sneeze. I didn't know. It was that bad. Yeah. Anyways, Forrest's mom dies, unfortunately.
Yeah.
She has a cancer,
Mhm.
and he kind of learns that. Well, that's been reiterated in his life that death is a part of life, but
Yeah.
he wishes it wasn't, of course. And you want to continue?
What happens next?
No. What does happen? He goes kind of like he.
Can't remember the order.
Yeah.
He gets a job mowing the lawn.
Yeah,
He does
at the
mowing.
place. I think there's
Yeah,
something before that was kind of important.
Yeah, and then we find out that Lieutenant Dan invested a bunch of their money in some fruit company that did rather well, and they show a letter. They never specifically say that it's Apple, but
It is Apple.
But it is Apple. And see, I love another little historical thing that's like, you know, just it's like a history documentary, but like not focused on the history part of it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of they do all these kind of primary source evidence things of that happening. It feels like world building in a way, even though a bit of it feels kind of out of place, or it's like suspension disbelief, like whatever.
Yeah.
Some of it's a little out of place, but it does work for the most
Yeah.
part, I'd say. Anyways, from there he becomes kind of a gazillionaire, and he's very good.
He mostly grass for free.
Yeah,
Because he likes doing it so much.
His shrimping business is taken off, and they have tons of boats and stuff like
Yeah.
that coming out of the hurricane, and they're like very successful entrepreneurs now. Lieutenant Dan is doing well. Lieutenant Nubs.
What?
I just thought of that.
Why?
No legs.
Well, yeah, but why would you come up with a nickname like that?
I don't know. Stubbs.
That's not any better.
Lego.
Yeah, what Gary said.
Legolas.
We're gonna turn this into a regular segment. Crappy nicknames with Ethan. And that's all, folks. Thanks for tuning in to Crappy Nicknames with Ethan. Okay, cut away from that. Hold on. All right, let's get back to it. So he's mowing the lawn for free, and then Jenny comes along. She finally decided she was going to stop running around like a drunken hippie
Because she's a crackhead.
because she's a crackhead.
She's a hippie now, and she's been on an adventure, quite an adventure.
Yep.
traveling the world trying to find herself. Obviously, she has rejected Forrest numerous amounts of time because she doesn't believe he knows what love is, based on his perception of the world being different. But obviously, Forrest knows what love is. I think.
I think that's pretty clear. I mean, that's pretty clear. Like even with his mom and everything, it's and with Bubba and everyone. Like,
Yeah, he definitely gets a strong attachment to people, and he treats them like family. Everyone
Yeah.
he's met, right? So,
Yeah.
I do think that it's clear to the audience at least, but she obviously at the point in time sees him like a burden. But
yeah.
she moves in, looking for kind of some refuge, and eventually Forrest decides he would like to marry her, which she rejects that based on the fact that she thinks he wouldn't want him to marry her based on what she's done and who he is and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, she runs away, and Forrest decides to
Go for a run.
a very long run
Yes.
across the entire
Well, I
United
thought I'd
States.
start running, and when I got to the end of the road, I thought I'd run to the edge of the town. And when I got to the edge of the town, I figured, well, I come this far, I may as well just keep running. So I figured I'd head on to the end of the edge of town, and then, well, I figured I'd come this far, I'd just run across the whole county, and then figured I'd come this far, so I'll just run across the whole state. And then it just keeps going, and then
Gets
he
to
keeps
the ocean, he
yeah,
goes,
goes back to
"And
the
came
other.
this far, so I figured I'd turn back and keep running.
and then goes to the other ocean, and then he does it for what? It's like 3.5 years or something like that.
Yeah, no, he does a lot of running. People keep trying to think why he's running for like
Yeah.
whatever political, religious, humanitarian
Yeah,
reason.
and he's like, why can't people believe I'm just running to run?
Yeah, he
And
just-
then all the little things happen, like the bumper sticker guy with shit happens, and then the smiley face guy with the T-shirt, and all these little historical things.
yeah, exactly. And eventually he stops running because he realizes he wants to go home. And come that point, he finds out that Jenny is living in, where is she living now?
I don't actually know.
I forget
She
what
she
she's
settled down somewhere.
Yeah, and it turns out that she has a son, and his name is Forrest, right? And upon further examination, this boy is
His son,
Forrest Gump's son.
Forrest Jr.
Yeah, they don't call him Junior at all.
No, they call him Lil Forrest.
Yeah, or they just call him Forrest Gump.
Yeah, my name is Forrest Gump.
Are we gonna cut out all the little bits of us going Forrest Gump? Or like
No, that's the best
voices?
part.
No, that's the best part.
That's the best part. I'm not cutting any of this out.
Yeah,
Just
no
running
accents.
completely unedited.
Completely unedited. Dear
Yep.
God.
Unedited. Allegedly. What
Yeah.
other points do we have to him? Let me see this.
Yeah, you can see that. And from there, he realizes, okay, I'm going to help take care of this boy, obviously, because he's mine. And kind of coming up to that, Jenny tells him he's sick. She's sick. And she has?
They don't specifically say it, but I'm pretty sure it's AIDS. Makes sense because, doing a lot of drugs and whatnot.
And hippie stuff.
Yeah, and hippie stuff.
Hippie stuff. And she's sick, and she asks Forrest if he'd like to marry her, which kind of a bit iffy on
Well,
that.
my problem with that whole plot is that it's like she rejected him for so long, and now at the end of the movie, it's like it makes for a great story when it's like, oh, finally he finally gets the girl, but it's not like it just doesn't feel like quite fair in a way because she rejected him for so long, and it doesn't feel right. Like it just feels a little bit like childish almost, where it's like,
now in her point of desperate need, she's like, oh, I'll
Yeah.
run to you, right?
yeah,
No, obviously there's some benefits there. She's his only friend growing up, treated him like he was completely normal for the most part. And I think also adding to that is it's obviously not about the money for her. Like, obviously some people would be like, oh, she's just like a gold digger. She wants the
yeah.
money, right? But I don't think it's that because she did come back once and she chose to leave willingly. No, like, divorce or
Yeah.
anything like that. She didn't get any money off of that. She just didn't want that to be her life. And so she's coming back, I guess, for the help and stuff. And obviously he has a son. They want to have that relationship. But yeah, I do think there was some sort of issue there. Kind of like how she just kind of goes to him and he takes him back. Obviously, he's been thinking about her his entire life. He won't even look at other girls.
I mean, it makes sense in his character for him to accept it, but at the same time, like as an audience or as a viewer, you're like, this just doesn't seem fair, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree. It definitely feels a little not out of place, just a little bit weird, especially since if someone did that to you or I, right?
Well, it
wouldn't be that.
Yeah, it's almost like, well, we have to have him get the girl at the end. Like it's almost like just to try and get that plot in. Whereas I feel like a more natural plot would be for him to or for her to die, and him not know until
He learns he
and
has a
his
son. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
They phone up and
exactly, yes.
oh, we have your son here, and he's like, say what now? Like I feel like that would have been a more natural ending to it, but. I mean, it's good the way it is, but
Yeah.
it's not. It's
Like they say in
could
the
have been
movie,
more natural.
sometimes life's like a box of
Box of chocolates.
yeah.
You never know what you're gonna get.
Life's like a box of chocolates.
Yeah.
You never know if you have a secret son in 16 counties across. That was a good one.
Yeah,
That was pretty good.
that's good.
Anyways, moving on. Let's talk about technical stuff. I feel like we could talk about
We can
some
talk about technical.
And the movie ends. Sorry, she dies. Movie ends.
Yeah.
He's really smart.
Yeah, that's the other thing. That is a really very interesting scene. I really like the way they did it, where we went, you know, you'd expect him to be like, oh, we have a son, you know, and whatnot. But he's you can tell he's like freaked out, and then you're like, why is he right? And he's like, is he stupid? And that's the first time that he acknowledges that he himself knows he's not super bright.
Well, no,
Like-
he does say that, especially in the scene where she rejects marrying him. He's like, well, I know I'm not bright like
It's
the
true.
other man.
That's true.
You know what I mean? But he'd be a good husband.
That's
for her,
true.
right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he does acknowledge it, especially like when they're in the hotel room and the hooker's like,
Yeah, I
are
guess
you like
that's
stupid or
true.
something? And
Yeah.
and then obviously he doesn't like it, and Lieutenant Dan is like,
Yeah.
you know, don't call my friend stupid.
Yeah.
Right? You know. So I think he does acknowledge it or stuff, but he doesn't let it define who he is.
Yeah.
Really, I think is what it comes down
Yeah.
to. He's like, first of all, it's like not kind or anything like
No.
that, right? But I don't think anyone in that position wants to be felt like they're any
No.
less, especially when,
No.
you know, he's a war hero.
Mm-hmm.
He's
Ping pong
a
champion.
ping pong champion.
He's a gazillionaire.
He's a gazillionaire, in no particular order, and yeah, he did some other cool stuff. And he's a dad, right?
College graduate,
He's a
and he
col-
played a bunch of football
He's
too.
a college graduate. He's
Yeah.
a football star, right? He has a Medal of Honor. He's met so many presidents who all got assassinated.
Not all of
Do you
them.
think? Here's a little bit of like a fan theory. What if he was behind the assassinations?
Like he's like a bad luck charm. Like he went
Yeah.
to China, and then the Chinese
He brought-
assassinated.
he brought, like,
yeah.
yeah. I don't know. He was really good at cleaning that gun when he was in.
He
Nam.
was. That's true. He was like pretty fast on that.
Well, we'll let the viewers at home decide.
Conspiracy theories here.
Yeah.
Tinfoil hat.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
an undercover assassin for the CIA,
Probably not for the CIA, but
the government.
I thought we weren't talking about politics, Gary.
Carry on.
Close the window.
Oh, all right. You listened.
And is there anything else that we're talking about, like in the movie? Because the movie just kind of ends there.
Oh,
After
there was
he
one thing.
takes
When
care.
when he gives her his Medal of Honor, you
Yeah,
didn't like
I
that.
did not like that at all.
I agree. It felt a little bit weird. Like,
She has left him over and over and over, and he cares about her a lot, right? And
Yeah.
I think obviously he has a hard time understanding when people like or dislike him or want
Mm-hmm.
him to be done, of course, right? But he cares about her so much, and it's sweet that he gives her his Medal of Honor, but it's just like,
yeah, from his character, it makes sense.
it's just, yeah, it might make sense from his character, but it just hurt me
It does.
so much.
Yeah.
It's just like, I didn't like it at all.
Yeah.
And obviously she returns the Medal of Honor to him, and it's all good, but
When
it's
she
like,
leaves again.
when she leaves again, right? And it's just like it keeps going back to this, and I don't know, man. I just felt like I don't think it's necessarily a thing on the story plot, but it just for me didn't feel
Yeah.
good at all, right? It just like I don't know, I didn't like it. And anyways, he takes care of Little Forrest, and sounds like a cool rapper name actually.
Little Forest, yeah,
Yeah.
that could be good. Probably
Um,
be like one of those like eco ones Where they're
Yeah.
like like one of the like super like climate protester like rappers.
Right, like throw a can of soup on like the
Out
Mona
of-
Lisa,
yeah,
and
exactly.
then start like breaking into song.
Yes. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I think,
exactly.
I think that's kind of what would happen. And then, yeah. So I guess we're talking about technical
color.
aspects. Color.
It's it's very interesting. Like he's a relatively childlike character. Like and they use a lot of like pastel colors. Like when you look at it, it's a lot of like these like kind of like bright, like I'm not gonna say baby colors, but like
Solid.
yeah, like they're not it's not a like a dark tone, like like some movies, like you see it a lot in Zack Snyder movies, where they have this like really dark, like kind of desaturated, like
Mr. Janice.
yeah,
Like case in point. I agree.
like ones like that, and then in this one, where his character is a little more childlike, they use a lot of those like pastel colors, and I think it draws you, like it makes it feel a little more upbeat, whereas which goes along with a bunch of the comedy that they've thrown in, and it takes it from being a super serious movie to being a little more of a lighthearted movie. Like,
Yeah,
it
it's
helps with that.
heartwarming. It's
Yeah.
it's kind of warm. It's charming. I agree with that. Like even when they're in Vietnam,
Yeah, even when they're Vietnam,
it's not super dark. Obviously, there's
No.
explosions and guns and stuff like that, and there's lots of rain.
Yeah.
But it's shot in a way where it's still very vibrant
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
it seems like things are solid, right? It's not. It doesn't feel like chaos almost when he's there. It feels
Yeah.
more serene. When obviously that's exact opposite of
Yeah.
that. No one who
Yeah,
ever went to
exactly.
Vietnam in that time was
Yeah.
in any form of peace, right? So
I mean, like you watch something like say like 300 or something from Zack Snyder, and like that's like a classic example of his color correcting or his color style, and it's like the trees and stuff are like black in that, and like the sky is orange, but like you say in when they're in Vietnam, like the trees are green and the sky is blue.
yeah, it
and
almost feels lush. The grass is like
it's like he's on a
like- yeah.
vacation kind of.
Yeah, and even when they go to Nam for the first time, it's like that. I even mentioned that while we were watching. it.
barbecues.
They're having barbecues and beers and stuff, and he's making friends, or at least he thinks he's making friends.
He
and
do.
and, yeah, it didn't feel like maybe that typical like super gritty war kind
Yeah.
of scene. It felt like more of like this is just another chapter of my life, and this is what I did, and now like people think I'm a hero, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting perspective to look at, and I agree with you. It's kind of not normal
Yeah.
in that kind of technical sense,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There's one shot that I really liked. When he's sitting on the bus, it's probably like the second or third shot in the movie. It's like kind of, I think it was a jib probably, and it goes down and then pushes in. I thought that was
Oh,
really
yeah.
cool. Yeah, as he's talking, while he's doing his voiceover there, he's like saying who he is. Yeah, I thought that was a great shot. What else? Lighting. I thought lighting was like nothing like
There wasn't
super fancy.
There was nothing special about it. I think it was just kind of all standard. Like there was no.
Yeah, I mean, I think really shines above all else is the acting. Tom Hanks killed it.
Yeah.
Everyone killed it, of course, but Tom Hanks especially just makes
Yeah.
it great. And we talked about the child actors and how they did.
This
Lots
is
of respect
interesting.
for
I
that.
was watching an interview with Tom Hanks one time, and he was talking about Forrest Gump and
Sure.
and his accent, like again with the acting, and they were trying to find the child actor. I can't remember his name now, but and they were like, okay, and you'll match Tom's accent and whatnot, and he was like, no, I'll match the kid's accent because the kid is from Alabama. So he spent hours, and he says, I still have the tapes, like just hours and hours of me just talking with this kid, just trying to learn his accent, how he says things, and he matched the kid's accent, which I thought which again shows really good like preparation and acting skills that you can just match a kid's accent,
And I think it's a little bit of a respect thing too, right? I think. Well, first of all, the kid's actually from Alabama, so first-hand source right there, right? but I think, especially like when we're talking about how difficult it can be to work with like child actors and discuss some of those things, it makes it easier for the kid to kind of melt into that role a little bit more comfortably because they're not trying to fake what their voice sounds like.
They're acting
Essentially,
a little
right?
more like themselves almost.
Right. They're a little more like themselves. Obviously, there's the limitations with the legs and stuff, and having the disabilities that Forrest Gump does. But it's not like the kid's trying to mask his voice and stuff, aside from maybe like stuttering a little bit and stuff. I think it helps, especially any actor, well, yet alone a child actor, kind of melt into that role, feel more comfortable in the shoes, and really get the motions of it down, rather than like the inflection, right?
Yep.
They're focusing on what their eyes are doing, they're focusing on what their legs are doing, and how they interact with objects in the scene, rather than how am I going to sound through it, right? So I think it feels a little less awkward than it had the potential to be, right?
Yeah.
And I think when you
And
have
that probably contributed to how well they did too. Like you say, they weren't focused on that. So
right, when you have a fully grown trained actor who can maybe do some of those stuff and a little better, like fleshed out, then I think it's really good that you have someone who's willing to, no, I'll do the work and put it in because I know it's going to be better. Like I'm watching The Acolyte right now, which isn't a fantastic show.
We're not going into that.
Yeah, we won't go into that right now. It's had some very good moments, but I'm hoping that it has a good finale and comes back to it. But the guy who plays Master Soul, I forget his name, of course, but he learned English to play his role in Star Wars. He didn't know, he didn't speak a lick of English before.
That's impressive.
He learned how to speak fluent English so he could play this Jedi Master role, Master Soul, the main character in Star Wars Jedi, like the Acolyte. And yeah, I think that's incredible.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that like great actors who are strong at what they do and who enjoy, I think a lot of it comes down to passion, honestly.
Yeah, for sure.
Having the passion for it and willing to do that work. I think it betters the film, and I think it enriches the character because it just makes sense. You know what I mean? I think that's the easiest way to say that. Lots of respect and admiration for people like that. It's not easy. It's way easier said than done. And I know there's actors out there who are like, okay, I'm gonna get my paycheck, whatever, just another day at work. But I do think there's a lot of strong actors out there who are very good at what they do, whose sole purpose is, okay, instead of just getting this paycheck, how can I go the extra mile to enrich this film and make it something that is not just another day of me acting, but me branching out my skills and trying something new.
And that's going to benefit you in the long run too, because people are going to see that movie and see how well it did, and and then you're going to get cast more, you're going to get more opportunities, and you're going to just be able to do more cool things.
Yeah, that's 100%. That's the greatest gift for an actor, of course, and someone who is very passionate about it. I think you can definitely tell the passion, right?
For sure.
An actor who wants to be on set and contribute and come up with ideas for other characters should be compared to one who's just like, stick to the script, let's just get it done, I want to go home, right?
Yep.
And I think that reflects well in this movie, and there's a billion other movies and examples that we could go through and figure out, but I think we can leave that off there. I think unless that was a pretty good segment. Boom, YouTube short right there. Good or bad moments. Let's talk about that.
Oh, we already talked about a couple of the ones we didn't like.
Is there anything in particular that stood out that really makes this film come together? Because I have one if you want to think about it.
I don't know.
All right. Well, I'll say mine, and you can think about yours. For me, what I think makes this movie come down to, like, ties it together, makes it wholesome. I know we talked about the word heartwarming. I think that's my top kind of word I use for this. Lieutenant Dan's character, honestly, having him come around, I think that really ties the story of Forrest Gump and his afflictions to people in a way. A lot of people see Forrest as someone who's incompetent, not adequately fit for what he's doing, and Lieutenant Dan sees him that way as well, right? Lieutenant Dan, resents him obviously and preying on his downfall almost in a way where he didn't want to be saved by him. Forrest Gump was just a bumbling idiot who decided to save his life despite his wishes and stuff, and then he obviously makes fun of him and resents him. He's like, how could you get a Medal of Honor? I don't have legs right now, but you got it, and you're Forrest Gump, right? It didn't make sense to him, right? How many times am I going to say right? That should be a little counter that we had. Well, right. And so he goes on and reconnects with Forrest after obviously lunging at him in his wheelchair, trying to like just pissed off at him. I guess he didn't lunge at him. He just started falling back. I guess I spent the whole scene thinking he was gonna like attack him or shoot him or
Yeah.
something. Because there's so many assassination attempts. I thought someone would try and assassinate
Assassinate
Forrest,
Gump,
right?
yeah.
But he goes on and Forrest helps him despite all this stuff and all this resentment Lieutenant Dan has for him. Forrest Gump still helps him get to his hotel room and helps wheel him back through like the icy streets. And it's like this awesome moment. And they go and they drink together. They watch the news, and then they go to the bar. They hang out. And then obviously the moment in the hotel room where the
Yes.
hooker's like, are you stupid or something? And he's like, don't call my friend stupid. And I think that right there is a great turning point
Yeah, for sure.
between what Forrest does to the people who wrong him, right? He obviously, most of us when we're wronged take a certain level like of a hint and we're like, okay, well that person obviously just isn't for me, right? Forrest Gump doesn't see it like that. He sees them almost as a friend or more of an opportunity to kind of enrich that person's life in one way or another, right? Like Lieutenant Dan. And Lieutenant Dan then stands up for him in that moment. And I think that's when it's like, especially in the movie, it shows the effect Forrest Gump has on people and how he kind of brings his new perspective and light, childish light, I'd say, into the world and sparks some sort of respect for himself as a result, right? And Lieutenant Dan he decides to be his friend now and helps him with his business on his boat, and together they survive the hurricane. What hurricane was that?
I don't remember the name of it.
You don't remember the name? Okay,
No.
it's fine. And they become friends and obviously run this successful business, and they both become very rich off of it. And he's obviously made his peace, Lieutenant Dan now. And there's this really nice moment where he's like, I never thanked you for saving my
Yes,
life.
that's true.
He doesn't outright say thank you for saving my life, but it's this nice moment where he's like, he recognizes that I never said thank you. And then he falls backwards off the boat.
Yeah, and you think he's committing suicide. Exactly.
I thought of that scene that he was thanking him for saving his life, and then like he was just
Taking his own
He was
life.
taking his own life, and obviously in the next scene he's there and he's well, right?
Yeah.
But I was like really concerned for a moment that that's where the story was heading. But yeah, I don't know. I think for me, the Lieutenant Dan arc coming out of that really highlights what this movie is really about. It's not about like a love story necessarily or about American propaganda or like how great America, raw,
America.
Or all these cool presidents, right? I think it's more about how Forrest Gump interacts with the world, and how you can almost take a new perspective from someone, even if you don't think they're intelligent or adequate enough for societal norms, right? I lost what I was saying, but like you enrich your life, right?
It tells the world, like it shows the world from a different perspective, like that one that you normally don't think of. I mean, there's lots of people in the world, I'm sure, who are similar to Forrest Gump, where they're maybe not the brightest, and yet they still have a fulfilling life, and they make other people have a more fulfilling life. Just because they are just kind of simple in a way, like he doesn't live a complicated life, and I think that is probably a breath of fresh air for some people. Like I mean Jenny, with all the various things that she went and did, and all the people that she met, and then but she always had that simple kind of person to come back to. I mean, as much as we don't like that, it makes sense, and it you can see how it impacted her.
Right, where someone might look at Forrest and be like, he's got a few screws loose. Obviously, he might not be fit for what he does, but then you really look at it, and he's grounded. And I think they explore that a little bit when all the runners run with him. He's like the one guy's like, this guy is someone who has his life put together, and he doesn't. His mom just died, his girl just left him, right? But when you really look at it, it's like, I mean, he looks at life in a way where he's had all this torment happen to him, but he still has a positive outlook.
Yep. He just keeps going.
He doesn't let the things like money complicate him. He doesn't live a lavish lifestyle, right?
No.
If I gave you a couple $1 billion right now, I'm sure you and I would both find a way to live some sort of ruin it in some way.
Yeah,
or another,
I'm
right?
sure. Hookers and cocaine.
You lose. I think you lose some sort of reality in a way when you acquire like some wealth and stuff, and I think it changes people. But I think he has all that still, and his perspective on the life still stays the same. He still has the same people. He still treats people the same, and he runs away from all of it just because he wants to run. And obviously, it's not realistic in that sense, right?
Yeah.
Like,
But it's a symbol, really.
Yeah.
For somebody who's just, like you said, a lot of stuff is going on in his life, and he where he's been that grounded breath of fresh air for some people, he now needs to get that breath of fresh air for himself. Like, and so that's his way of doing it.
yeah, exactly. He's a wounded war veteran, right? And he's obviously had lots of chaos in his life.
Yeah.
And yeah, it doesn't seem to affect him in the way it would affect you or I, and
Yeah.
and that's obviously like an indication of what his disabilities are. But then I'd argue that his disability in this case almost seems like the best part about him, where all of the positive stuff in his
Yes.
life comes from this, because he's
Yep.
so grounded and in
Yep.
reality, his own reality, I guess, but he finds a way to make it work.
Yep.
and change people for the better because of it, right? So there's nothing negative about it whatsoever. It's a very positive thing, and I think the movie did a good job highlighting that, where it's not a limitation to him. It's not a disability. It's one of his greatest abilities, is how he uses it to make people feel enriched and enlightened in his own sense, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
That's
All right.
pretty good.
So what do we have left?
Yeah, I think we talked about things you don't like. Do you have anything to add? Things you didn't like or liked, or what brought the film together?
I had one, and then we went off on the tangent, and I forgot it already. No, I mean, I think we've covered pretty much everything. I mean,
Did you think it was too political?
no, I mean it because it didn't go into depth on any of those things, right?
Sure.
Like, all it did was just mention that they happened. Like, they with the presidents, they never said much about it other than it happened. With all the peace and stuff. I mean, they specifically avoided that very cleverly by having that policeman unplug his microphone, when they're at the Washington Monument, and he's about, they want him to say something about the war, and he's, well, I only have one thing to say, and then his mic gets unplugged until they finally get it back on with, and that's all I have to say about that. Like, they very specifically avoided it. So I think they did a good job of mentioning those historical things, but not getting too political about it.
Right. Obviously, America at the time was.
Turbulent.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the lighter words I'd use. So many people for and against the war,
Yeah.
obviously conflicting, and we're not going to talk more about that, I don't think, because it's like.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's not really a place, but the movie does address it in a way, and
Yep.
I think if it was a lot of people I was reading this is like a war propaganda film and stuff like that. I don't really think
Not
so,
at
because
all.
I feel like if it really was an hoorah America film, he would, instead of having the unplug moment, he would really go on have a soliloquy
Yeah.
about how great or how bad or whatever the war was and how it affected him, right?
Yeah. Well, and also they would, when they're actually in Nam, they would show it in a more positive light. I mean, really, they only, they showed it in a relatively negative light. I mean, his commander lost his legs, half of his unit was potentially killed. I mean, but his best friend died. That's not a very good propaganda for the war.
No, exactly. If you're trying to make a film that's America, hoorah, you followed your orders and now you're the best. It's if you look at what their platoon did, they went into battle, they got destroyed,
Mm-hmm.
they were sent home as war heroes, right? And most of them lost their lives, and now they had to find a way to rehabilitate into society as new people, right?
Yep.
Forrest took the ping pong route and obviously became an entertainer and then part of the U.S. team, and then Lieutenant Dan, was
He had a much
crippled,
harder time with it.
and he couldn't find his way back necessarily, and he had to change his entire outlook. Instead of being super resentful and against Forrest, he kind of had to realize this guy actually saved my life, and maybe I wasn't supposed to die at that point, right?
Mhm.
So I agree with what you're saying there, and
Yep.
I don't think it was a super USA
Yeah, no, it
film, right?
wasn't.
I
Well, and
think
also
it was
showing
more-
your president's almost getting assassinated or getting assassinated 5 times is not
Yeah,
a
if I
good way
was-
to make,
If I was trying to make my country seem like the greatest country
Yeah.
in the world and we were unstoppable, I wouldn't show all the assassination
Yeah,
attempts. And,
yeah, exactly.
And the footage of that, right?
Yeah.
And the Civil War stuff, right? I think at the end of the day, it was more meant to find some sort of light in all these tough moments with a very charming person being Forrest Gump, and make it a heartwarming piece of media, right? So yeah, I think that's pretty good.
So what do we got left? Ratings?
Yeah, let's talk about accolades. So
Oh, yeah.
we'll talk about Oscars because that's all I researched for this section. So at the Oscars, it won Best Picture, Best Film Editing, Best Actor, being Tom Hanks, of course, Visual Effects, which
Definitely deserved that one.
I think that comes down to the kind of sources they
The
had
blending with
and,
the
and putting them in,
history.
right?
Yeah, for sure. Because it really isn't that special effects heavy when you look at it. Like, I mean, there's the one war scene, which is the most like action effect, and then it's mostly subtle effects with those historical ones. And the other one I was wondering is how they did Lieutenant Dan, because that was like you don't even think about it, which is good special effects when you don't even notice it. Like, I don't know how they did that.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I think it also comes down to part of the running scenes. I imagine were also sped up and doing the car chases and stuff.
Probably,
I'm sure there was something there. But yeah, that comes down to winning best visual effects, and then also won. It said writing on the Oscars website, which I'm assuming screenplay.
Yeah.
Which if it came from a book, it would probably be is it adapted then? Would that?
It would be like some sort of adaptation.
But I guess maybe they didn't have it.
Best adaptation.
They didn't have it.
Yeah,
I
think it would probably be best like adaptation.
But yeah, it won those. And what would you give it out of 10 based on what we're talking about today?
I'm gonna give it an 8.7.
Oh man, 0.7. Come on.
8.7.
That's crazy. Can we stick to halves?
No.
8.7. Okay. That's tough. I originally, based on like everything we watched, I was gonna give it a 7.5, but I'm kind of leaning more towards an 8. So, because it's so charming and heartwarming, yeah, I'm gonna say 8.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say 8 out of 10.
Okay, so that's an average of 8.35.
Nerd.
That's our total score is 8.35.
Yeah. So there you go. This is the viewing room. We just watched Forrest Gump and we reviewed it, coming in around 8 as an average for us. Anything else we want to say?
Enjoy. I mean, this is the first episode. Hopefully it went well, and I'm sure we'll be back next week with another new exciting movie, which we have not decided on what it'll be yet.
We'll figure it out. Let us know. Have a great day. I'm Ethan.
I'm Adam.
And you're watching the viewing room. Now you're watching something else. That's
Empty Maggie. Empty Maggie.
Second best movie I watched today.
And cut.